Hey guys, my name is Steve Karma from Hope Church Lancaster. Like you guys, I've been in isolation for only God knows how long, and although it completely sucks, there is a reason why people who do something wrong have their freedom taken from them. It is a great opportunity to catch up on stuff like meeting back up with family and friends, obviously online, doing loads and loads of reading, and also listening to loads and loads of music. I don't listen to a huge amount of music these days, but one thing that isolation has done has got me listening to music again. So what I've done tonight is I've got a panel of 4 distinguished guests, and they represent kind of different kind of musical styles. They're also a little bit active on social media, and I'm just going to ask them a couple of questions. So I'm going to start with Jono. Jono, why don't you tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself, and how did you get into music?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Jono. As Steve said, I work for St Thomas's Church in Lancaster. I oversee everything musical and technical there. And I also work for a national charity called Christians Against Poverty. And we do sort of debt counselling work and help people in the verge of financial crisis. So my life is spent really with, on one hand, doing the kind of creative musical side, and on the other hand, kind of seeing and hearing stories of people on the poverty line on our doorstep. And I find that one kind of feeds the other. And actually through this kind of period of isolation and lockdown and COVID-19, it's almost like that's all been put in a pressure cooker. And, you know, I've found over the years actually that my own kind of inquisition about music, and, you know, I've always been inquisitive about learning new instruments, and I find that kind of thing fascinating. So I'm self-taught mainly. But I've found particularly recently seeing the challenges that the country's in and that people are struggling with has actually fed my own creativity to write songs. So I released a couple of songs, which I think we'll have in the description of this video if anyone wants to check them out on my YouTube channel or my socials, just at the beginning of this year. And they're Christian songs. They're songs that we've used in our church, but they're also songs that people have said have been really significant in helping them process, particularly a song called Christ the Rock, which actually talks about how when all else crumbles around, that Jesus is the thing that I rely on. For myself anyway, and yeah, that's been helpful, I think, for giving voice for other people who maybe don't have the words to give voice to stuff. I think music has an amazing power to do that. Sometimes it gives us words that we sometimes can't find in and of ourselves. So I love music. Most of my life revolves around music, and that's a bit about me.
Yeah, well, I'm going to switch to the gallery view because I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you, but this can go to the rest of you guys as well. It's interesting that you work for Christians Against Poverty and you are a musician. So one of the things I want to ask you, because you see it in some musical traditions more, but you see it less in others, should music mean something, i.e., should it be addressing social and political and economic and spiritual issues, or should music just be produced for the sake of music? Like, should art just be for the sake of art, or does it need, or should it have a function or philosophy? Jono?
That's a great question. I personally, I suppose, I don't feel that music should be formulaic at all. I think that absolutely music has a place in the political sphere. It has a place in the kind of in addressing issues regarding health, regarding mental health is a huge thing at the minute, and there's loads of artists, as I've sort of said, really, of through their own story or their own creativity giving voice to stuff that sometimes other people struggle with, or you know. And I think music has an incredible way of communicating in a way that spoken word sometimes doesn't. And I suppose I feel with my music that it's when I write best is when it feels God inspired. So actually sometimes if I sit down just to write a song just because I want to write a song, it doesn't happen. Whereas when there's something in my gut or something in my belly that's kind of been festering, and whether it's a kind of justice issue or whether it's just a sense of kind of love or adoration, that suddenly inspires me in a way that just writing a song for the sake of it doesn't. So yeah, I think music can serve a whole range of purposes in addressing all sorts of questions and wrestling, I suppose.
Adam, why don't you tell us quickly about yourself? But I want to put the question over to you as well. You are from Northern Ireland, and I'm assuming that you grew up in a Protestant community. That would be fair to say. Would that be right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
The reason why I say that is I went to a Catholic school. I grew up in Scotland. I was expelled from the Protestant school, and music was hugely politicized. Football, religion, politics. I say religion incredibly loosely. So I mean, I don't want to take up the time by asking you a huge amount about yourself, because I'm actually pretty interested in this question, even though we've already got on a tangent. We've just started, but yeah, Adam. Firstly, let me go back. Like, who are you? How did you get into music? And then let's hear what you think about that question.
Yeah, so I'm Adam Baker. I'm a singer-songwriter. I've worked in Senegal, West Africa with street kids. My wife and I were there for a couple of years. We know Steve from our time at ICC, which was a Bible college in Glasgow, and that's where I began recording music professionally and started working in music as a Christian artist. But later then went on to perform in pubs and clubs, but then more significantly started getting picked up by people like Huffington Post, some local radio stations, student radio, and also played a performance in the Olympic Park in 2012. And there was a lot of good stuff going on at the time in the music scene, a lot of really exciting bands and opportunities for artists as well. And that was just at the time that we headed off to go and work in Senegal. Spent a year in France and continued doing music. And through that time, started writing very different songs to what I had been writing as well, and trying to connect with a very different audience to what I had been used to. And then massive changes right across for everybody in the music industry when digital streaming and all of that really took off, and the whole live scene as well changed. And I came back having been away from the UK for a few years, not really knowing how to find my way back into music and what was the best way forward. So I have been up until about probably 8 or 9 months ago working with Record, which is a charity that have supported worship leaders and Christian musicians to write worship songs and record them and distribute them. And through their projects, I've been able to put out songs that I've worked on and released. And that's been a way for me to release music. I've also got involved with my local church here in Nottingham, King's Church Arnold, and I'm involved in the worship ministry there. So I've kind of found myself back into worship music, partly because of family life too, because I don't have the same time that I used to have to go and play in pubs and clubs and be on the road and sometimes not get any money and sometimes only get a bit. Now most of my time is taken up with a job where I run a charity that works with refugees, and then the rest of the time, my downtime is spent looking after now 2 little girls, but one who's 3 and one who's about a month old. So that's where my time gets spent. And creativity is still it's still there. I'm still writing, still putting out songs, and looking at doing some live streaming as well soon once I've got some equipment to make it sound decent.
Yeah. So back to that question. Then should art be produced for art's sake, or does art have a place in social conscience, social transformation? Yes, it can be used for good. Yes, it can be used for evil. But particularly, and I'm not really sure if you would describe it as that, but particularly from Northern Ireland, that kind of folk scene, sometimes music was used in a way that was heavily politicized. So it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are about that, Adam.
Yeah, I think it's both. it's both. It's not either or. Music can be entertaining. It can good music can be very, very useful, and can just be a lot of fun to listen to. A lot of some songs will make you dance more than others, just because of the groove, just because there's something catchy in it, and art that's well produced, that's well done, is always good. It's always good to kind of to see human expression come out in art and in creation. But there are those songs that are out there that are the art's very, very good, but sometimes the songwriting's very, very poor. And so that's for me where I really want to concentrate as a songwriter, is on the lyrics that I write, and to craft really, really good songs that are deep and meaningful, and that have something worth sharing. So I tend to write a lot of songs that are more thought provoking, and that are on particular issues or themes. I tend to approach writing with something in mind, rather than just seeing what happens or what comes out. I kind of approach it like that. And I think art should challenge us and should change us, because it has the power to. There's something about all art forms that can communicate on much deeper levels than just words can. And so I think it's important that we're true to ourselves. To sing stuff that I do not feel, or that I don't have any care or interest in, it just makes no sense. So even when I'm playing pub gigs or when I'm doing covers, I've got to sing stuff that I can sing with passion. Equally, when I sing in church and lead songs in church, I can only do stuff that I can really embed myself in, and that I can sing with real sincerity. And I think that communicates. The song can be well crafted, well written, but if there's not the real connection between the artist and the song that we're singing, then it won't really resonate the way it could. So I'm a great believer in that, and that's kind of what keeps me. That's my level playing,
That's really good. I want to ask the same question of AJ Plus. Hey Rob, great to have you. Same question to you, AJ. I don't know how you would describe music. It seems to be that the older I get, the more different genres of music there seem to be. But at least to me, there's kind of like a hip hop kind of grimy type feel. You might describe it differently. It'd be interesting what you think. But within that tradition, that is something that has been quite at the forefront, thinking about guys like Tupac Shakur, even going back, thinking of Marvin Gaye, the song he sings about Abraham, Martin, and John, which is about Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. There is that kind of social justice, social conscience tradition in inverted commas, Mobo, music of black origin. So AJ Plus, tell us about yourself, and just, it is a tangent, but I'm finding it fascinating. Tell us about yourself, how you got into music, how do you define your music, and tell us, should music do something, or is music enough in and of itself?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm AJ Plus. So I make, even me myself, in terms of like what box I would put my music in, it's kind of hard for me, but definitely like hip hop is kind of the main genre, seeing as I rap quite a bit, but I also add singing, and there's a lot of influences from different genres like gospel, R&B, all different types of music, even like Afro beats, because of like my Nigerian heritage. So there's kind of like a lot of type of music that I'm interested in, so it's just come out of me. But in what you were talking about in terms of like rap and message, I think one of the reasons I really got into rap was kind of storytelling and messages that they can convey. So whether it was a Christian artist that was rapping or a non-Christian artist, a lot of these rappers still have something to say. Now, when we come to like mainstream rap, I think one of the other things that influenced me to rap, because rewinding a bit, I didn't always rap. Like, I started rapping when I was about 16. Before this, like, I enjoyed music, I sang, but I didn't really do anything with it. But when I then like got into hip hop, that's when my interest for music kind of like took another level, because I've always enjoyed it. But when I started to try and write my own lyrics on things that I was going through that I didn't feel like were talked about enough, things that I could relate to, that's when I really started getting into the music. So coming to now, to answer the question about music being like needing the message or just being, I don't know, something that you have fun with. I think like what I think the guys have been saying before, you know, art is art, so it can just come out. But I definitely do believe, like with what I do, there's space for both, and there's a need for both. Because I know people that, you know, sometimes they're not really trying to listen to what's being said, they're just trying to feel something. And so, you know, what's being said sometimes isn't necessarily what they're going to engage with. So the message will get lost, so they're not going to listen to it. But at the same time, of course, you know, being a Christian, I believe the greatest message is the gospel. So of course, I'm going to say that messaging is important. So for me, like, I'm cool with people making music to make you dance and that's it, or making music for you to laugh or have fun. But at the same time, I also love, you know, someone that has something to say. So I think they're both, there's space for both of them. And yeah, so I just make music really to help people, so whatever that looks like. So you may have gone through a tough time. I know that I've been through tough times, and what I go through, I talk about. What I see, I talk about. I make music for people to have fun as well, because, like, you know, we're not here to just be bored all the time. So of course I want to make songs that really have like a rhythm behind it. And with like this new age hip hop, you can really do that with the production, because I like to produce myself as well. So I'm really into making beats. So that's something else I do. And yeah, but most importantly, I think whether you're Christian or not, I just want you to be able to learn something, take something away, be able to relate and understand that there's more to life than just existing, whether you believe in Christ or not. But as a Christian, Christ is gonna pop up in my songs here and there anyway, because, you know, he's my life, basically. Like, he is the Lord of my life. So if I wasn't talking about Jesus or stuff about my faith, then, you know, that would be, I wouldn't be telling my truth. So that's what I like to do in my music.
So you guys are going to have to raise your hands if you want to answer this question, because Zoom only really works well when one person is speaking at once. But you know, I can't remember where I picked it up from, but I heard a quote once saying that every revolution has a soundtrack. This is probably the greatest thing, greatest in inverted commas, obviously the coronavirus, within our lifetimes. You know, what kind of music will be produced? You know, what do you feel will be produced, or what will you be producing? Like, does everything change after this? Anybody answer that? Jono, is that you?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in if no one else is burning to. I think For me, certainly from a kind of Christian aspect, having chatted with a number of other kind of worship leaders around the country, there's a real sense of actually singing biblical truth. I don't know if you guys have noticed that a lot of what's been written recently has been about kind of emotion and mountaintop and valley, and like all that stuff's really important. And hopefully we will come out of this valley and see a mountaintop ultimately. But there's been a real yearning from what I've seen and heard, to actually come back to declare truth when, you know, all around seems kind of all over the place and chaotic, and everything's changing every day, and like there's so much fake news flying around, and you know, we're getting different bits of guidance and advice, and we're seeing all this unprecedented stuff. So to actually come back and focusing again on what is ultimately true seems to be what certainly some parts of the Christian sphere seem to be yearning for. So that's something I've been really challenged with. Is like, how can I bring fresh life to eternal truth? I suppose, which, you know, there's a million and one hymns for over hundreds of years, and more modern songs as well, been written about all sorts of aspects of kind of biblical truth. But how do I, as a songwriter, bring fresh life and vibrancy into stuff that's been written about before? I suppose is something that I've been wrestling with.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just texting one of our guys. I'm using his login, and I'm just telling him that he needs to just give me a bit of time. He's got a live event that should be happening soon, like very soon, as in 1 minute ago. But I just want to make sure that we talk to you all, and I also want to hear about what you guys are listening to and what you think we should be listening to get through this. But I'm going to go over to AJ raised his hand. AJ, I'm gonna park you there at the moment. So I'm gonna leave you just there at the moment. But I just want to say to Rob B. So Rob, you guys are all involved in worship in one regard or another, and do stuff in church. Rob doesn't, but it'd be interesting to hear from you, Rob. Where are you, Rob? Are you there? Oh, I think I may have lost Rob. Okay, there you go. Callum, let me go over to you then. Callum, tell us a little bit about yourself, and do you think that Corona and this isolation and also the economic uncertainty which might come from it, do you think that will change the music scene and the worship scene? And if so, how?
Yeah, so thanks, Steve. My name's Callum, like you said. I'm 20 years old and I live in Birmingham. I'm on staff at a church called Gateway Christian Centre and have been for the past 2 years. Really enjoying it, really love it, and heavily involved in worship and production there. So answering your question, I think this is a very interesting time, and I've only been around 20 years, so I haven't been around too long, and I haven't seen anything like this before. And speaking to people like my grandparents, you know, they haven't seen anything like this before. So this is a very interesting time in history. But it's interesting talking to lots of different worship leaders, lots of different pastors, senior leaders around the UK, and what their thoughts are with everything that's going on. And to be honest, I think this will change the way worship and the worship environment in what I think. But I think this is a time where us as Christians need to start getting closer and start deepening their relationship with God. And a massive way through that is worship, I believe. And I think, you know, talking about music independently, music opens your heart, you know, and emotionally opens your heart. And I know when I listen to certain songs, certain instrumentals, I'm just like, wow, that, you know, I just want to cry right now. And and it's just some random song someone's created. And then when you bring that to a Christian environment, you know, when Holy Spirit starts to move, you know, I think it's amazing. So you know, just quickly answering that question, yes, I think it will. And I think it's time for us as Christians to start saying, actually, God, this is the time I need to be close to you, build my relationship with you, and just push into your presence right now in this time of uncertainty. And lastly, this is the time where, we need to have faith over fear. So.
Right, guys, I am going to get my butt kicked if I don't move on. So I've got one question, and I'm going to ask you to answer it quickly. We're going to put links to all of you guys in the description bar and the stuff that you're doing. But let me start with AJ. What are you listening to, or what should we be listening to get us through the coronavirus in as few words as possible?
Okay, I'll be quick. Try an album by Morgan Harper Nichols, and the album is called Morgan Harper Nichols. I found that really amazing through hard times such as this. Isla Vista Worship, Soul Hymns, and then he's a singer-rapper kind of guy called Aha Gazelle, AHA, and then Gazelle Animal. And the project is called 180.
Yeah, Jono, what are you listening to? What should we be listening to? Music styles, artists, songs, what?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually gone back to listening to a band. They're kind of a couple called Gungo. Some of you may have come across them before. American group. They're Christian. It kind of borders the kind of Christian music that isn't worship and Christian music that is worship. Some of it's congregational, some of it isn't. You listen to an album and they take you on a journey through just about every musical genre you can imagine. Unbelievable musicians. And it's properly like quirky stuff. It gets away from the kind of Coldplay, Snow Patrol, U2 kind of feel that some modern worship has. Having said that, there is another amazing song that's just come out by a guy called Brandon Lake, who is a worship leader over in the States, who's recorded with Elevation Church, a song called Graves into Gardens. And that seems very apt at the minute, really, in terms of taking what feels dead and lifeless and making something beautiful from it. So that would be my recommendations. Check out Gungo and Graves into Gardens by Brandon Lake. Okay,
Adam or Callum?
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Bears Den, kind of pop folk band, and Death Cab for Cutie for like a year solid. Just amazing music, really good songwriters. Another great songwriter, Yvonne Lyon. Yvonne Lyon's a Scottish songwriter, folk artist, and her songwriting's on a whole other level. Really great stuff. Really profound, very meaningful. And I would also point towards things like Gunger. Young Oceans are probably the band at the minute for me that are offering something that is of significance and that is different from everything else that we kind of see in church life. So Young Oceans, definitely worth listening to just about everything that they've got out. The song Suddenly is an incredible song. I think that's where my headspace is at the minute. Whether it's useful for coronavirus isolation, who knows? Maybe something cheery. You're muted. Can't hear you.
No, that's fine, Adam. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Callum, in as few words as possible, what should we be listening to? And then I'm going to have to bring this thing to a close, guys.
Yeah, very quickly. 2 songs I would recommend are Worthy of It All by David Brymer. Great song to uplift God. And then the last one, Your Presence is Heaven by Israel Houghton. That's great.
Okay, guys, it's been absolutely awesome. I'm going to have to kick you out. I'm going to put all the links to all your stuff on the description bar. But thank you very much. Stay safe, and God bless you guys. Later.